Hello and welcome to 52 Weeks. This is week 7, and this week we're going to continue on chapter 2, Land Use, and we'll be focusing on the discussion of classifications of office space. Looking at the neighborhood uses, the citywide neighborhood uses, this is within the neighborhoods. We've got a community commercial, so we've got the mixed use of having a restaurant and housing above. Dense residential neighborhood, this is all neighborhood with either 3 or 4 story elements that are there. And it also could be multi-units within those. It could be a single floor on the first floor and then apartments either up in second and third floor or a total apartment up above. As one whole complete unit on the second and third floors. The other one is semi-detached housing, residential neighborhoods, where now we got specific houses that are detached. A wall that's between them is a party wall. And then the last is detached housing, residential neighborhood. So these are detached houses, single houses around the city. So that's the 4 basic groups that you see. The citywide industrial uses, this happens along the spine of the Paxton Creek. You can look at this. I turned the graphic sideways to understand how it faces the water. But originally, this is in the Manning Plan for the City Beautiful movement. There was always this idea of connectivity between. And that's what this is looking at in this diagram, is how do you meet east and west again, bridging this gap. We have the gap of the canal, the Paxton Creek, but we also have Cameron Street as a major thoroughfare. We also have the rail lines to deal with. But that's the citywide industrial uses. When we look at the urban renewal projects, this is in the comp plan in the 50s and 70s for 20 years. Look at what happens in vacant land or where we can develop large groups of housing. So this is Fox Ridge, some of the Governor Square area, these elements that we find around in typically the Midtown area, 7th Street and from Forrester up to Maclay. When we come to understand our city, one of the things to be thinking about is this urban conservation. And what does that look like? Well, we want to try to protect the housing that's here. So we've got 4,700 houses that are distressed or in need of help. This is in the urban fabric of the River District, also in the urban fabric of the Hill District. And how do we rebuild some of these? Look at underutilized areas. This is just a map of where things could be happening. In the Paxton Creek, the Division Street corridor connecting to Hack, the State Hospital, the Munich Makerspace, this idea of putting a makerspace in the community, a Northern Gateway at Maclay, the Midtown Muse as the Broad Street Market, Bailey Square up in the Hill area, and also Meander Park is kind of the old industrial rural spur that's out there. So there's a good list of the ideas that are out there. Someone has said bridge connecting the Division Street to Industrial Road, and also we need jobs badly. So there's a whole thing during the community engagement process of really understanding what the community wants in a plan or what should be developing. All right, so in moving to this next section, we look at what happens since we understand that we're landlocked, or the central business district is landlocked, and we want to conserve houses. Where is it that we can to conserve residential fabric in that land use in our community, in our neighborhood, residential? So this is where you look at this graphic of Pennsylvania and our capital in Harrisburg is a future central business district. We've got a diverse commercial and cultural center for 1.3 million people. So what if we thought of Harrisburg as that was the connection point, a downtown for all of central PA? That's a big idea. And one of the sad things is that hasn't been a consideration. Some of the things that have been happening and building in the suburbs have actually been to the detriment of our city, our downtown. And people would argue, well, there's a reason for this because of taxes, whatever, property taxes, schools. Like, you would cut through this if we actually had a plan and said we want to develop this and actually be true to city living and city life, walkability, equity, and what we're going to be working on with social issues. This is what we should be doing. So the future central business district looks at what if we take the ideas, the elements around the economic factors of the Paxton Creek and the rail line, and pull that into a specific development. This happens to be at North 6th Street where Maclay's at, and that's what this diagram is kind of important. The first time I saw this, it was actually pretty mind-bending because it's outside the box. Like, what if we were to rethink Harrisburg's downtown and it became a downtown that connects to uptown area and also back to Maclay, so it's connected to 81 and had a different bit of circulation. So we go beyond the decades of 3% of office vacancy. That's one of the issues we just are trying to deal with. We need more offices, and particularly we need more Class A office space. So that's really important to understand. And we also we were creating 10,000 square feet of multi-hybrid space business that's coming in. It's going to have some change out in the ability to do that. The nice thing is in other cities that are around the nation, this is a trend that we see. And how do we have larger spaces that can be either chopped into a smaller place, or the floor plates are bigger for some of these types of tech companies that we find. So if we're not making a central business district, the suburban ring will continue to grow. So this is a crux issue. If we don't understand this idea of we need something to be developing in Class A, if we know there's a need in Class A space, which Class A we'll talk about what that is. If we knew this, and I knew this back in 2005 moving in from Philly, this donut syndrome that we have, which means that there's a ring of growth that's happening and the center just does not grow at all. So everything is happening as outside. So when someone asks me about Harrisburg, and if it's important, it's great. I love living here. I love the walkability and all that. But the thing is, it's just not that significant. If you go to ask people where they go to shop, where they travel to and all that, there's a lot of things that are happening out in the suburbs if you have the ability to travel. And the public transit system is not excellent in traveling out there. So the sad thing is our suburbs continue to grow. And that's been a trend that's been the past 40 some years, since we've, even earlier than that. It's only now that we've been even thinking about, with 83 and the two-way conversion, that we rethink what travel and movement is through our city and what it means to residents who live here.